Okay, everyone, let's see if we can change some minds tonight. So Matt, I'm going to start off by just giving you a lot of information about where we are with COVID in the week that is August 26th, 2021. So more than 100,000 people are hospitalized currently in the US. The first time that level has been reached since January. So things are not getting better, they're getting worse. The latest figure is also more than double of what it was the same day last year. And that was before we had vaccines. Speaking of vaccines, hospitals and researchers say that the vast majority of this year's hospitalized patients are unvaccinated.
I'm going to interject real quick
Go
because
ahead.
LA County, they just had some data. CDC reported that when they're looking at hospitalizations. And so I think you're 5 times, and just this is LA County, so you could probably extrapolate this to a pretty good sample size to some extent. A little more dense, but I mean, take it for what it is. So 5 times more likely to get infected if you're unvaccinated, and 29 times more likely to be hospitalized if unvaccinated. So, I mean, do with that what you want.
Yeah, I agree. Like, do your own research. But yeah, that sounds to me that sounds like you should get vaccinated. But
I was thinking horse meds myself, but who knows?
Yeah, that's I don't. Maybe it's just me and the way my brain works, but I'm like, I don't think we should do satire anymore because there's too many news headlines that are mirroring the Onion at this point that I'm like, I don't know how we combat this misinformation, but like some people might not realize that we're being sarcastic. So naturally, it's concerning that nearly half the population remains unvaccinated, some of which by choice. With the way the numbers are, like all of the data you just provided before.
Of the remaining unvaccinated, I think only like 30% said like FDA approval was like an important benchmark for them too. So I mean, like, take that for what it is. The FDA approval, while it's led to more push from like I think employers and stuff like that, I don't know that you're going to see like a huge uptick in the vaccinated. Or you'll see an uptick, obviously, I think, but I don't know how big it's going to be.
Yeah, I saw a handful of news stories actually where people, and they were young people too, which kind of disappointed me, but that they were like, yeah, that was part of their reason. It was like college students. That's right. And they were like, yeah, one part of the reason I'm getting vaccinated is because it is FDA approved. And I was like, right on. But they were like, and also it's going to be required. And I was like, hey, whatever works. Like your school is literally trying to save your life right now, but good for you. And I feel like it's so easy to not be kind to the unvaccinated. And I'm like, I think if they veer towards becoming vaccinated, I think we should applaud that. And maybe you took a longer road than myself, but at the end of the day, we're both bettering the community.
Yeah, I'm probably done shaming the unvaccinated. I'm just like, it's like nothing's gonna really. I'm just gonna present data as it comes and move on from there.
One thing that I found particularly disturbing while doing my weekly research of like, hey, where are we at with COVID right now? Because it's not good, is that in places like Texas, who, the leadership is Greg Abbott, that is famous for basically being like, I don't want to protect children or people in general, asked for 2,500 additional medical personnel from across the country to help alleviate pressure on the state's healthcare system imposed by the surge that happened this summer that was mainly triggered by the Delta variant. And I'm not going to shame someone for asking for help because I think we should normalize that. But hot take, you don't have to ask for help if you are precautious to begin with. So I do hope that Texas gets the help so that get some form of alleviation, because like no one deserves to die.
The arsonist is asking for water.
And another state that recently was known for having I don't know if they still have the most strictest policies against keeping people alive during this global pandemic, because I think Oregon might have been like, hold my beer. and like went a little bit more above and beyond, but I'm not 100%. I haven't compared them in depth. But Washington State is also out of ICU beds, and I'm like, well, that's not good, because if they have if they're doing the mandate, I was like, that tells me that even with a mask mandate, an area really needs to be on lockdown. And you mentioned before that, and that might have been before when we were just like going, I just realized now, you mentioned before we were live, but you highlighted the stat that in Washington State, there are fewer patients than there are the number of doctors that Texas was asking for, or, healthcare professionals that Texas was asking for. But even with that, like I said, they're out of ICU beds.
With the caveat, yeah, that's in intensive care units, guys. So not just like overall like cases or anything like that. We're talking about like severe, like people who like end up like with severe hospitalizations. But yeah, but that's just like, it's why it's like kind of important to think about like numbers, right? And like that, and like put into perspective like locales, states, different like districts, regions, things like that. An interesting thing, I did a video on TikTok a few like an hour ago, but I was just looking at case counts per 100,000, and it broke it down by pretty much like so voting areas and how many people voted Republican or Democrat in 2020. And in areas, so like over time, it starts out with typically Democratic areas. Blue areas are more urban, more densely populated, right? So in the very beginning, areas with 80% higher Democrats, right, or 60% higher Democrats, you saw a higher case count per 100,000, right? And then you saw the rural areas more red, you saw a lower case count, the lowest being areas where there was 80% Republican voting or higher. That's when it wasn't partisan yet. And you can tell, like, just even within 3 months, as the cases go up, right, and you see your kind of curve and the spikes and all that, it flips to where it is red areas, especially the 80% plus, are the worst hit, and blue areas, 80% plus, are the least hit. And that carries as to even right now, where it is, if you look at right now case counts per 100,000, it's like on a graph where this is like your y-axis. It's literally like 80% Republican, 60% Republican, 40% Republican, 20% Republican. Like your case count outcomes literally matches your partisan level when it comes to just the blue right spectrum in America. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Data literally, it literally directly shows people the outcomes as it relates to like.
Yeah, but I mean, I would argue too, like, I could see how if you lived in rural America and you're inundated with, you turn on your computer or you look at your phone, and you're inundated with all this misinformation circling around Facebook and like, your fake news websites, and that then when your area doesn't have like an insane breakout because you're not stacked on top of one another, I get the initial skepticism. I understand it. But if you just do a little bit of research into the other areas, it should be abundantly clear.
We fucked up in California, for example. And this is not hindsight bias. I called this shit then while it was happening. Why did we lock down in rural areas with case counts in huge counties like below 300? Because the Bay Area, San Francisco, it's like we shouldn't have locked down the whole state should not have locked down. It should have been tiered based upon county stuff. Like that's like, because like to your point, if you got a bunch of people up in like Placerville, Grizzly Flats, you're not gonna know what I'm talking about. Like pretty much the more rural areas I'm from who are not being hit by this, but they can't go to work, they can't do it. It's like literally nobody in the area is being impacted. Yeah, of course, I'm like, what the fuck is this, right? Because they're hearing their messaging, which just reinforces what they're seeing. So by the time it hits them, they've already formed and cemented the belief that this is not that serious. So that's why for so many seeings not believing, even when it's slapping them in the face, because you're just seeing how pervasive propaganda could be sometimes. For a lot of people, you're seeing deathbed, tragic stories and stuff, right? But yeah, man. Yeah. That's why I'm kind of disappointed in some of our reactions on the left as it relates to some of the news coming out about, insurance carriers, employers increasing costs. It's like, yeah, this is the logistics of capitalism, but this is also like something we typically argue against, I think.
Yeah, like we usually try to touch on COVID almost every week. And like one aspect I almost thought we would cover was the fact that they're talking about that if you didn't get vaccinated early on, they're going to start charging the people who are later going to get vaccinated. I'm like, oh, great, another deterrent. That's exactly what we need from the people who were hesitant to begin with. And like, I get that, like, they're like, because, capitalism, we can now make money off of it. It's a bad combination. It's a bad combination.
One thing I wanted to say, no use. It was Arkansas, I believe.
Is that this isn't satire?
This is real. I'll pull it up for you real quick. Yeah, it's an anti-parasite drug used on Arkansas jail inmates for COVID, and this is coming out like local reports, things like that. So this is not a. Not a joke. Inmates of Northwest Arkansas jail have been prescribed, I can't say the name of it. Is it Avermis? I don't know how to say it, but that drug to combat COVID-19 despite warnings from FDA officials and federal health officials that the antiparasitic drug should not be used to treat coronavirus. Washington County Sheriff confirmed Tuesday night that the jail's health provider had been prescribing the drug, but did not say how many inmates have been given the drug.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all.
No.
It's one thing like when just like individuals like fall for like a, you know, I don't even know how that starts. Like someone needs to make like a documentary, but like I don't even know how like the rumor that you should take horse dewormer to fight COVID even starts. But I'm assuming it's like a Facebook post or like some post on like some weird.
Someone said it. I did a video of my own, but someone did the video even better, I think. The guy was like, yeah, so I go to my medical doctor who tells me to take a vaccine based upon the information from scientists who study viruses and things like that. And you listen to a guy on the internet, went down to your local pet shop, right, or something, and got, you know, like animal medicine, went back home and took it yourself, but we're the sheep. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what else. Like, I can't be mean anymore because to your point, like when you literally have people doing things like this, and like I don't think this is a huge amount of people, but like I saw something where like, don't quote me on this, but I think they were talking about like whatever you would call like the poison control, like 70% like plus their calls were related to that drug. I was like, that fuck. So like maybe it's more than I thought. Actually, I don't know. We don't have numbers on it yet, but it's like when that's actually happening. To your point, you can't really laugh about it anymore because it's like, fuck, we're dealing with like misinformation, disinformation. It's like, fuck, dude, it's the plague.
Yeah, like we're battling two pandemics at the same time. We've got the viral pandemic, and then we have whatever the hell we let the internet become.
Oh my god! He start No Use said it, and you can trust No Use is a pretty solid source. Always follow up on him, but he said started the American Frontline Doctors, which are the same people the administration threw out there. Was it last summer with like that crazy like lady from like Houston, for example, and stuff. Like he did send us that text. Yeah, that's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Data's clear, information's clear, science is clear, medicine's clear. Make the right choice.
Yeah, and like. I think this is interesting how you guys are like, don't lock down everything, just lock down your major cities. And I'm like, you know, that might actually help with the fact that they don't want to lock down anything because they're worried it'll create another January 6th.
Oh my God, that's a good point. So once upon a time it would have made sense just because of where the spread was. Now it might make sense just because of the realities of political violence.